What is going on, guys? It's LordKing here, back with another video. This is going to be a UFC preview show again. UFC Kansas City, more specifically, the return of Mighty Mouse facing Wilson Hayes. Without further ado, let's go straight into it. I did hope you enjoyed my previous review show of the UFC 210, which is relatively odd, sort of shaped out quite oddly and with a little bit of controversy. So hopefully there'll be none of that on this card, and this is a card that I'm very excited for. Let's go into it. First up, we have Aljamain Sterling versus Augusto Mendes. Now Aljamain Sterling is actually coming off, I believe, 2 losses now. He was 12-0, and his last loss I actually thought he won that against Rafael Assunção. As you can see, two split decisions. He is lost now. The one against Brian Caraway, I think, was definitely a loss for him. But he is a very talented sort of person. He's coming out of Serra Longo gym with Matt Serra, the likes of those sort of people. So his ground game is absolutely phenomenal. He's got some very good striking, some kicks and things. As you can see, he calls himself the Funk Master. So he has quite an odd sort of style. Now, whereas we have Augusto Mendes, who is actually, he's 6-1, his one loss coming to the actual bantamweight champion, Cody Garbrandt, via TKO KO, and he's just beaten Frankie Saenz, I believe. So it could be quite an interesting matchup. I think they're trying to get Aljamain Sterling back on the horse and such, and get him rolling again. As you can see, the percentage is not the highest in terms of KO. We've got some quite decent sort of submission percentages, decision. In terms of stature, we have quite a huge reach sort of advantage for Aljamain Sterling. The actual height itself isn't too big. Leg reach is relatively big as well. When it comes to significant strikes, Aljamain Sterling, he pretty much edges him in almost everything, including absorbed. So his defense is only very slightly higher, as you can see, but he absorbs much less strikes per minute. Takedowns, Augusto Mendes, he has a higher takedown average and a better takedown accuracy and a very good takedown defense, it seems, but I'm not too sure how accurate that stat is in terms of actual comparison, because I'm not too sure how many times he's actually been attempted to be taken down. So I'm going to give this one to Aljamain Sterling. I think he'll win in quite a good fashion, possibly submission. These are my fights of the night before I go into the main card. We also have Andrew Sanchez on the card as well, the winner of the Ultimate Fighter a little while ago. Let's move into Louis Smolka versus Tim Elliott. Now, Tim Elliott, if you're aware, he actually won another Ultimate Fighter winner, actually won the chance to fight Demetrious Johnson, the gentleman who is headlining this card. And it was quite an entertaining fight, to be honest. He started off and he had him, I think it was in a guillotine, and Demetrious Johnson, and everyone really thought that it could be Demetrious Johnson losing this fight, but being the mastermind and arguably in my eyes the best pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC at the moment, he almost managed to maneuver his way out by staying calm and won it pretty unanimously with some very good takedowns and grappling. Now, Louis Smolka is a very good fighter, but he's actually coming off recently of a few bad performances, especially against, I believe, Moreno, where another Ultimate Fighter contender didn't actually win it, but he lost to him in relatively spectacular fashion, which no one thought would happen. So let's look at the stats quickly. We've got the records. Tim Elliott has been doing this a while, so he's 14-7 with one. I believe it's a no contest or maybe a draw. Louis Smolka 11-3. KOs, same KO TKO rate. Submission, Smolka has a better ground game. He's very good. Decision, Tim Elliott wins that one. Height, again, 2 inches is relatively similar. The reach goes in Smolka's favour, and the leg reach goes in Tim Elliott's favour. Tim Elliott is a very odd sort of character. He reminds me a lot of Dominic Cruz in the sense the way that he strikes and the way he moves around is very unorthodox, so it could be hard to predict. Strikes landed per minute, this all kind of favours Smolka, including the absorbed, so if Tim Elliott can land some good strikes, it could be a good day for him, as he is a relatively big sort of flyweight. Takedown average, much better for Tim Elliott. Accuracy is incredibly high, and his defense is also very high as well. Less submissions. So let's look actually into Louis Smolka. As mentioned, by the way, I'm using Wikipedia and the UFC website. I shall link them down below. As you can see, Louis Smolka was doing very well, apart from that loss that was to Chris Carriaso. He was doing very well until he lost to, as I mentioned, Brandon Moreno and then Ray Borg again. 2 very good fighters. People expected him to beat Brandon Moreno, but he obviously lost to him in a very good way, and Ray Borg just pretty much outclassed him, to be honest. Whereas Tim Elliott, as mentioned, he's been around the block quite a lot, and then he actually came back into the Ultimate Fighter. I think he was in the UFC before. He was indeed. He came back on the Ultimate Fighter and did very well. As you can see, he has quite a mixed career during the UFC. He's lost to the likes of Dodson, Jens Pulver previously, which is a a legend of the sport, Bagutinov, Benavidez, Zach Mikowski. So he's fought some of the best people, and as I said before, he fought Mighty Mouse Demetrious Johnson for the title, and he lost unanimously. So it's going to be quite an interesting fight. I'm going to give this one to Tim Elliott, as I think he will edge this. Moving into the next one, Bobby Green versus Rashid Magomedov. Bobby Green is one of my favourite sort of fighters in a sense. He has an incredibly good upbringing story in the sense, so that's maybe the wrong way to say it. His actual upcoming story is of how he's been brought up is incredible. It's being a very street sort of person with a lot of troubles and hardships going through his life. So it's quite a nice person to see. He also incorporates one of my favourite actual moves, defensive moves in the UFC. He's used the Philly shell before. I'm sure if you guys have seen Floyd Mayweather or James Toney, they do a maneuver where they bring their left shoulder up with their hand low and you almost use their shoulder as a guard to their chin. He has utilised that before, so it's quite cool to see actually in the UFC. As you can see, Rashid Magomedov, he's one of these Russian, I believe Dagestani sort of gentleman, where he is a very similar sort of style as, I'm going to say, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Dagestan. Yes, they have this similar sort of thing where it's a very Russian sambo sort of style of wrestling. Yeah, he's done a lot of sambo wrestling. So looking into his actual record, a bloody good record. Only lost twice out of 19. But as you can see, the people he fought, I don't believe, are some of the highest standard. Obviously, Gilbert Burns is relatively good, but Beneil Dariush is a phenomenal fighter, and he lost to him by unanimous decision. So we'll see what happens here. With Bobby Green is a pretty good fighter, so it could be Bobby Green's night. Unfortunately, coming off of 2 losses to Edson Barbosa and Dustin Poirier. Now, Edson Barbosa, well, he's absolutely phenomenal. As I just mentioned, Dariush, he KO'd him with a flying knee, which is phenomenal. And Dustin Poirier, again, another very good fighter, going to be fighting Eddie Alvarez soon enough. So Bobby Green, he's been around the block, he's fought a hell of a lot of people, and like I mentioned, he has a very good sort of background story behind him, so it could be quite an interesting fight. I'm going to give that one to Bobby Green. I think he will win maybe by a unanimous decision. Williams Duskanoy, it could be a very interesting fight. I'm not too clued up on these people, but I'll put it as an interesting fight, to be honest. As you can see, it must be Duskanoy's debut in the octagon, possibly a wrestling sort of fight. We'll find out later. Moving into the other fight that I find very interesting is Volkov versus Roy Nelson. I'm sure most of you are aware, if you're watching the video, you know who Roy Nelson is. As you can see from the picture, he is not the physical specimen that we are used to seeing in the UFC. But he's a very exciting fighter to watch. So now, both records are very respectable. Both have a very good TKO rate, which is impressive. Roy Nelson submission, 18%. Roy Nelson is an incredibly good jiu-jitsu artist as well. So despite the figure may not warrant it, he is a very good jiu-jitsu artist. Height, as you can see, is incredibly in Volkov's favour. Reach, very much so as well, and leg reach. The weight, I'm assuming Roy Nelson will take it there. Significant strikes landed per minute, not too much difference, maybe 1, a little bit less than 1. Accuracy, Volkov seems to be a lot more accurate, and Roy Nelson, known for having his incredibly tough, durable chin, absorbs a hell of a lot of strikes. Well, not a hell of a lot, but he absorbs quite a few strikes and kind of just eats them and walks through them. Takedown average, I think it's clear to see Volkov is a standing sort of fighter. He likes to keep it standing. Roy Nelson will go for a takedown occasionally, but does love to swing the hands as well. Both have very good takedown defense also. So looking into Roy Nelson's actual record itself, that's the exhibition record. As you Kimbo sliced James Pasquini during the Ultimate Fighter. So Roy Nelson has pretty much fought everyone and anyone. Actually, from old times, he's fought Ben Rothwell, going back a long way, Andrei Arlovsky, Brendan Schaub, Jeff Monsoon, Shrew, Dos Santos Mir, Verdum, Krokop, Miocic, Daniel Cormier, Hunt, Overeem, Barnett, Derek Lewis, Antonio Silva. I don't know who this guy hasn't fought, to be honest. It's quite crazy. And as you can see, his most recent win coming over Bigfoot, Antonio Silva, via KO. So let's go into Volkov's record as well. Recently coming off his very first UFC win against Timothy Johnson via split decision, having previously beaten the likes of Cheick Kongo and Bellator as well. So this is going to be a test for Volkov. This is his first real proper test, I think, and I don't think he's ready for Roy Nelson yet, having just only beaten Timothy Johnson by a split decision. So I'm going to give this one to Roy Nelson. I think Volkov will land some good strikes, and Roy Nelson is going to maybe eat them, possibly grind for a takedown, and get a submission. That is my prediction for that one. Next up, we are moving on to the main card, where this main card is absolutely phenomenal. Overall, this card is absolutely great. It's one of the best fight nights we've seen in a long time. But this main card is very good because, well, Jeremy Stephens, Little Heathen Stephens, probably, well, I'm going to say he's the hardest hitter in the featherweight sort of division. I'm going to give it to him, to be honest. A lot of people say the McGregor has the hardest hitter, but I think Jeremy Stephens is just that guy. He knocks people dead, whereas McGregor has that thing where he stuns people a hell of a lot and lands a very good combo, and he'll put them away. Stephens, he literally puts people to sleep. It's pretty incredible to see, and he also has a hell of a lot of experience, as you've seen, as you can see here. He's fought everyone from he's been in the UFC for a very long time. Din Thomas, Rafael dos Anjos, Joe Lazon, T-Bow, Melvin Guillard, Pettis, Cerrone, Eve Edwards, Cub Swanson, Oliveira, Holloway, Burrell, Edgar. So he's fought a hell of a lot of people, to be honest. It's relatively safe to say when he fights people with a very good stand-up style mixed in with wrestling and unorthodox sort of fighters, well, fighters who are very technically gifted, he doesn't do too well. As you can see here, the likes of Pettis, Cerrone, Edwards, Cub Swanson, Oliveira, Holloway, Burrell, Edgar. I believe Burrell, I personally think he actually, well, I think Burrell won, to be honest, but that's obviously up for debate. So you can see when he gets these very talented sort of fighters, he does struggle a fair bit, but like I mentioned, he has got that power that can send people into next week. So it's an interesting one. Now, Renato Moicano, this is a very upcoming fighter. This is going to be an incredibly tough test for him. As you can see, he's done very well. He has that one draw, but he is undefeated at the moment. But this is going to be his hardest test yet. As you can see, these fighters he's fought so far are really nothing compared to Stephens. Looking at the records, Stephens obviously has the experience. KO TKO rate is phenomenal for Stephens. 68% is incredibly high. Renato, submission is higher, decision is higher. He takes the height, takes the reach very slightly, and the leg reach slightly also. Significant strikes landed per minute. He also beats Stephens. I think this is a slightly biased, well, not the best stat to look at, because Stephens, as I mentioned, when he does hit someone, they do fall to sleep. So he doesn't need that many to land per minute. Accuracy is higher. The absorb is a relatively similar amount. The defense is also a relatively similar amount as well. Stephens can go in for a takedown. It is a thing that he can do, although he will like to keep it standing and trade punches. Accuracy, it goes to Renato. And defense is again relatively similar. Overall, this is probably going to be quite a good fight, to be honest. Hopefully it's going to be a stand-up sort of battle. Renato may look for a takedown and try to submit Stephens. But I'm going to give this to Stephens, as I believe he will catch him with something good and get a TKO. This will be Renato's hardest test yet, so we'll see what happens, I guess. Moving into the next fight, this is going to be my fight of the night pick. Mainly because, well, Jacare Souza, I'm sure if you guys are familiar with UFC and what's happening at the moment, GSP, George St. Pierre, has come back out of retirement and is fighting Michael Bisping for the middleweight championship. Now, this was kind of unexpected, and not a lot of people foresaw this and thought Jacare Souza, or especially Yoel Romero, should be getting the next title shot, not GSP. So now Jacare Ronaldo Souza, as I'm calling him Jacare as his nickname, I think he has to keep active, because obviously his profession is fighting, so you need to keep money flowing, and also he enjoys fighting. So he's keeping very active. He just recently fought Timbo Etch, finished him in the first round, and now he's fighting Robert Whittaker, who's a much harder test, to be honest. But well, we'll look into it. As you can see, Brazil, New Zealand. Robert Whittaker is, well, Australian. He lives in Australia, I believe, but is from New Zealand. Records, it goes to Jacare. KO. Jacare, he does have some hands. Robert Whittaker is also known for his stand-up, so it could be, if it's a stand-up battle, it could be quite interesting. Jacare Souza, his submissions, if you guys know who he is, this guy, maybe him and Damian Maia are the two best practitioners of jiu-jitsu in the UFC. There is no one else that can touch those two. If it goes to the ground, I will almost put my house on it that Jacare Souza will win the fight if he can go to the ground. He'll win via submission. It's obviously not a guaranteed thing, don't take my word for it, but he is so phenomenal on the ground. It's relatively hard to compare these two. Height, Pretty similar, reach similar, leg reach similar, strikes landed per minute. Now this is where Whittaker kind of takes it. His stand-up, a lot of people would probably argue his stand-up is better, despite Jacare Souza having a very good stand-up as well. Defense is relatively similar. Absorbed, Whittaker does take a few more strikes. So Jacare, if he lands, he could do something to Whittaker. As we've seen Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, he kind of lit Whittaker up on the feet. So we'll see what happens. Takedown average, as mentioned, if he gets to the ground, Jacare's wrestling has gotten a hell of a lot better since a few years ago. So he can get to the ground now, and once he gets there, it's almost game over already. Jacare, if you're unaware, means alligator or crocodile, whatever it is in Brazilian. So he is. It's almost just when they don't let go, the crocodile doesn't let go when it bites. So that is similar to Jacare. People drown when he is grappling with them. Takedown average is higher. Accuracy is a little bit lower, but assumed because he goes for more takedowns. Whittaker's takedown defense is incredibly good. Now this is probably the key stat to take from this. His takedown defense is 93.75%, which is great. If he can prevent the takedown, then, well, it could be a incredibly interesting sort of fight, to be honest. I'm hoping it stays standing up because I'll enjoy it. As you can see, Whittaker, he won one of the Ultimate Fighters. Going into his record, as mentioned, he's lost to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson by TKO. He's standing up. Wonderboy Thompson, as we all know, is one of the best stand-up fighters in the UFC. Court McGee, coming off a few bad losses, but he's a good fighter. And then other than that, he's on a very good win streak. Brad Tavares, Uriah Hall, he's a very good fighter. Rafael Natal, and Derek Brunson. That Derek Brunson fight was absolutely phenomenal. It was just Derek Brunson kind of chasing him down. They were both going for it. Well, it says for itself. He won performance of the night, and it was a fight of the night. It was a very good fight, even though it only lasted 1 round or 4 minutes of it, as we can see. Now here is the man, which we will call Jacare, the submission specialist. Looking at his record, well, who hasn't he really fought? Losses to Gegard Mousasi, he's beaten Robbie Lawler, Tim Kennedy, he's lost to Luke Rockholder back in Strikeforce, beaten Derek Brunson, Kamosi, Carmont, Mousasi, again he's fought Kamosi. He lost to Yoel Romero via split decision. I think he actually won this fight, but he lost via split decision. Beaten Vitor Belfort via TKO. This was an odd fight. I don't know why Vitor Belfort took him down. He tried pulling guard on Jacare Souza. It was odd. And obviously his most recent victory, 2 UFCs, full pay-per-view UFCs ago, against Tim Boetsch, submission Kimura. It was just so fluid. The way he goes down, performance of the night, again, 2 performances of the night. The way he takes people down and then just swamps them. Again, the best way to describe it is if you ever had experience doing jiu-jitsu with someone who is experienced, I know I've had this myself, someone who is much better than I am, the best way to describe it is it feels like drowning. You really can't do anything. Even if you are on top, some people are so good, you just feel like you're drowning. You can't move without getting hurt in the way, a submission way. So I'm going to give that one to Jacare Souza. I think he gets the takedown and then will submit Robert Whittaker, but again, anything can happen. Possibly again another fight of the night contestant is Rose Namajunas versus Michelle Waterson. Now, if you are unaware of these two fighters, this is the co-main event, and I know some people have a bit of problems with the women's being co-main event as they're not always used to the women's fight. Sometimes they can be boring or stagnant, but both of these two are incredibly good fighters. Rose Namajunas, very good stand-up, and also an incredibly good jiu-jitsu game. Michelle Waterson, one of the best karate practitioners in the UFC, if not obviously the women's as well, but one of the best stand-up and karate practitioners. She is a former Invicta champion. Invicta, one of the women's only almost subdivisions of the UFC. Both have pretty good, 14-4 is obviously experience goes to Michelle Waterson. 6-3. Rose Namajunas is very good. She got to the final of the Ultimate Fighter, so could have won the belt that season. KO TKO rate favours Michelle Waterson. Submission, as I said before, Rose Namajunas takes it there. Decisions, both don't have many decisions, so it could be quite an interesting fight. Reach goes to Rose. She's a relatively gangly sort of person, so it could be interesting. Strikes, significant strikes. Michelle Waterson loses this one a little bit, despite having, I think, the better stand-up. The accuracy, as you can see, the accuracy is way more refined for Waterson. Her accuracy is phenomenal. And absorbs minimal. So she's almost like a point fighter. If you guys are familiar with point karate or point kickboxing, your objective is to hit and not get hit and do it as quick as possible. So this is kind of how she fights a little bit. But now, where she trains at Jackson Winklejohn, she has very good all-round game, including ground game as well. Takedown average, very similar. Takedown accuracy, Waterson has an incredible rate. I wasn't even aware of this myself. Her 100% takedown accuracy is phenomenal. Takedowns defended. again, it favours Waterson, so it could be the key, keeping it on the standing for Waterson and not letting Rose Namajunas take it to the ground. Despite Waterson having a higher submission average, I would still give the ground game to Rose Namajunas. So this is, again, stats don't tell everything. As you can see, the takedowns and things favour Waterson, but I think her grappling is worse than Rose Namajunas. Also considering Rose Namajunas has less fights than Michelle Waterson. As you can see here by this sentence, Waterson was ranked 6th pound-for-pound female in MMA fighting, which, well, in 2013, #1 ranked atomweight. This is in 2013, so she's been good for a hell of a long time. Looking into her record, 4 losses, a few people I'm unaware of, to be honest. Invicta, she has this here, but her most recent, probably her best win ever, against Paige Van Zandt. If you're unaware of Paige Van Zandt, she is almost kind of one of the poster girls for the women's sort of fighting after Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm and such. She's a very pretty sort of girl and a very nice sort of, very marketable person, and she beat her with a very good rear naked choke submission. I believe Paige Van Zandt actually was knocked out cold with the submission. So performance of the night, as you can see, coming off a very good win to her. Rose Namajunas, as mentioned, she fought in the Ultimate Fighter finale, and, well, she lost to Carla Esparza, but she's also coming off wins to Angela Hill, Paige Van Zandt again, as Michelle Waterson has fought. Tisha Torres, she avenged her loss previously to her, and recently lost to Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I'm not 100% sure on how to pronounce that. But this Karolina actually went on to fight Joanna Jędrzejczyk, the strawweight champion, for the title. So, and she only lost a split decision to Karolina. Lost that fight, but Rose only lost a split decision to Karolina. So it shows her potential is there, and she has got that very good potential to exceed. I'm going to give this fight to Michelle Waterson. I think she will do very well in the stand-up and maybe get a TKO or KO, but look out for this as possibly a fight of the night. On to the final and main event, one of my favourite fighters of all time, Demetrious Johnson, Mighty Mouse, fighting Wilson Hayes. This fight was set to happen probably last year, and for some reason it didn't. So, well, Demetrious Johnson was injured, and it kind of just nothing ever came of it. Demetrious Johnson went on to fight Tim Elliott, the winner of the Ultimate Fighter, and Wilson Hayes was kind of thrown into the background. But now it is happening this Saturday. It is happening. So we have Demetrious Johnson. He's lost twice to Brad Pickett and Dominic Cruz. So he's fought everyone. He is the most, I personally think he is the most well-rounded game in the UFC. His striking, his takedowns, his submissions, he is so bloody well-rounded. He reminds me of Georges St. Pierre, but a smaller version. KO, TKO rate, edges Demetrious Johnson. These guys aren't really KO artists, to be fair. Submission, Wilson Hayes is a very good ground game. Decision, Wilson Hayes edges it more. Height, they're both incredibly small. I think they're both 5'4" or 5'3", whatever it is. Reach, very similar. Strikes landed per minute, Demetrious Johnson, he takes it. Accuracy, he takes it, absorbs less, and his defense is higher. All relatively insignificant here, apart from the landed per minute and maybe the accuracy. Grappling, takedown average, Wilson Hayes has a very good grappling percentage. I think he tries to take it down. He's a wrestler and a submission artist in a sense, but has got very powerful hands as well. He has a higher average, but a lower takedown accuracy. So Demetrious Johnson could take it there. Takedowns defended, Johnson has a better takedown defense as well. The submission average is lower. Let's look into the actual records themselves. Wilson Hayes, just coming off his unanimous decision to Ulka Sasaki. Previous wins: Hector Sandoval, Dustin Ortiz, lost to Formega, lost to Alcantara. I don't think he's fought the caliber of people. I mean, his recent win over Ulka Sasaki, he's not up there in terms of the best in the division. Now, Demetrious Johnson, as I've mentioned, maybe I'm very biased, but this guy, he's fought everyone, and he's bloody done well against them. He's obviously lost, as I mentioned, Brad Pickett, one of the UK's legends. Also, Dominic Cruz, again, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters ever to live, and a draw against Ian McCall avenged instantly after. But he's fought everyone. He's beaten them crazy. He beats all of them. Submission over Horiguchi. Decision unanimous to Dodson. He beat Henry Cejudo with a TKO. I mean, Henry Cejudo, if you're unaware, he's won an Olympic gold medal in wrestling. So this is not just an average person. He is maybe the pinnacle of best athlete we've ever seen in the UFC. A gold medalist at the Olympics. And then obviously his unanimous decision over Tim Elliott. So I think it favours Demetrious Johnson a hell of a lot. With training with Matt Hume, he's almost given him this all-round game. Again, as I mentioned, very similar to GSP. I personally can't see Wilson Hayes winning this. I think Demetrious Johnson will outsmart him and learn his tactics, and Wilson Hayes is how he fights for the first round, and the rest of it is going to be exhibition and showing us why Demetrious Johnson is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC, in my opinion. So look out for this one. I think, as I mentioned in my predictions, I think fight of the night will be between Jacare Souza versus Whittaker or Namajunas versus Waterson. And then performance of the night I'm going to give to Demetrious Johnson, as I can't not back him. He is absolutely phenomenal. I'm hoping all of you this weekend will see as why he is so good. Please, if it is a wrestling sort of fight where Demetrious Johnson is taking Wilson Hayes down and he is showing his grappling, do not think it is a boring fight. I know it can be a thing. We all want to see KOs and stuff, but almost just take the time to appreciate how difficult it is and how good these people are on the ground. I know we want the KOs and TKOs and submissions, but just see what he has in store and appreciate how hard it is for these guys to do. So as always, guys, thank you very much for listening in today. I hope you enjoy Saturday's card. Watch out for tomorrow. I think I shall have a Xenoverse random battles coming up. And I may do 2 this week, or maybe another UFC random battles as well. So keep an eye out. I hope you enjoy it. As always, like, share, and subscribe. And yeah, enjoy the card this weekend. It's going to be a very good one. So thank you as always, guys. I've been LordKing. Goodbye.